Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC, a prayer profile as we do on these things when a signing gets announced. Janssen, Manchester United confirmed, which is what we love to see. As you can see, I've drafted in Miriam for this one to talk all things through Janssen, the best position. You know these player profiles by now, best positions, thoughts on the signing, all that kind of thing. So Miriam, I'll just ask you from the start in terms of just your initial thoughts on it, because it kind of came out of nowhere, this one.
It did come out of nowhere. It feels like Wolfsburg is being picked apart by other teams. So seeing her, make a move, and it was announced almost halfway through the season that she was on the move in the summer. I think the initial reaction was kudos to United for pulling this one. I think given the news that we have seen recently with the team and what they've moved from, to the portables, the training environment and kind of those headlines, I think there was worries of are they going to be able to pull in the world-class players that they did have their eyes on initially going into the transfer window. And so for this one, that's a huge bring in for United, and I'm sure we'll be able to jump into more why that is. So she's a very experienced player. It looked like there was also some interest from City. I think we heard at the start of the window. And so I think for United, this is a massive player to bring in, and whatever negotiations they used to bring her in, despite the recent headlines, whoever was leading that, give him a pat on the back.
No, for sure. Obviously, you talk about the reported intro. This will surprise me, obviously, with City being the team. I was adamant, I think, that she was going to City and things like that. So to get this deal over the line, I'm pretty amazed by it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you kind of say her best position is then? Because we've seen her as left back, centre back, defensive midfield. She's a very versatile player, I think it's fair to say, on that front. Where would you say, having seen her a few times, her best actual position is?
Well, the reason she's so versatile and the reason she's able to play in those positions that you mentioned of left back, left wing back, even sometimes in the odd positions that Parsons would be putting her in during his stint with the Netherlands. Defensive midfielder, we occasionally saw her there when she was playing for Arsenal, and a left center back. And she's able to play all these roles because she's so two-footed. And I think that is something that you don't usually get with defenders, certainly not in the modern game. Her preferred foot is the right foot, but she's so good with both her feet that she is comfortable when she is shifted on positions. And I think what she also brings on to, because she's so two-footed, is she's actually pretty well in terms of dribbling. She can handle the ball pretty well. And so you look at how she passes, the way she advances the ball, she can push up forward, which are, I think amazing. I'd use the word amazing pieces of tools that a defender or a defensive midfielder would want to have. Her preferred position, I think particularly because of what we've seen in the past 3, 4, 5 years, even specifically Wolfsburg, it is a left center back. Now that's not to say she's not slotted in left wing back or left back. She has when there's been injuries when there's been injuries, so she's done that at Wolfsburg. And we've seen that this season too. We've seen that with the Dutch national team. In fact, you look back to the US Netherlands final in the 2019 World Cup. She started that game, and she started that game as a left back. So she is a player that can play in that position in huge amount of pressure. She's versatile. And I think what she's been able to rack up in recent years, because she shifted from left back to left center back, is the different partnerships that she has played with. And you see her adapt so well into that. And so I think her best position, based off what she has played the most in, you would have to say left center back. But I'm not going to knock down and say that she's not just as fantastic in the left back. Now, again, you'd have to pair her up with a great winger up top. With the Dutch team, we see her do that with Bergt, has a very good relationship with her. And so I think to get the most out of your left back, you're going to be setting them up for success with whoever the winger is that they're playing with and the partnership besides. So easier said than done that you can just slot her in left back. I think if that's the approach United are taking, they need to make sure they're setting her up in a good environment. I touched on, and you just mentioned as well, defensive midfielder. We haven't seen her take that role in some time, but a two-footed center back that can also play left center back, you can understand why she has those qualities of good dribbling, good feet, and has really good progressive passes. Almost a progressive passes, and maybe this is a bit of like a Canadian bias, but Vanessa Giles, the way she drives up and pushes in these long passes, really reminds me of how Janssen does it, and I love that a lot. And so I think when you have a brave center back who can often drive up to the midfield, you can see why she is comfortable playing that defensive role. And so really, to answer your question, probably a left center back, but because we have seen her alternate across these three areas, and because she's so two-footed, very good in dribbling, can progress the ball well, I think it's a matter of who you're pairing her up with and who is around her to be able to support that system that she'll be deployed in.
It's interesting you say, except obviously depending on the signings that United make this summer, I'm intrigued to know whether I don't think she's signing for United to be a rotation player. To me, she's one that would be starting. So if that's the case, if she is coming in potentially as a left back or left centre back, that's Blundell or Turner out of the team, and that's what's makes me think defensive midfield. That's a position that I can see her nailing down. But again, if she's not playing there for another year, it's going to be really interesting. I feel like to see where she actually plays, because if this is going to be a starter, that's one of the two I've just mentioned, Blundell or Turner, that have to come out. It's not going to be May Letitia, and it's not going to be Jade Riviere on the other side. So it's got to be one of those two.
But I'd also have to mention the fact that we have seen Jade Riviere be pretty injury prone. And then you've seen the likes of Gemma Evans then drop into that left center back position, which hasn't necessarily played out so well. So she again, could be a player. She's not going to be a rotation player, but she could be a player that then adds a little bit of competition in those spots. And so if Jade Riviere goes down, because I don't think, coaches are well aware when players are injury prone. If she's down and they're in the Conti Cup, FA Cup, and they're after a title race, you can't be putting Gemma Evans there. You're going to have to put a Turner. It needs to be building competition in there. And she's a player who's not going to be able to, sit on the bench and come off as a backup player. And so I think to recognizing that the injuries in the back line haven't been the nicest to United, and they've been punished for that big time.
No, for sure. Defensive reinforcements is definitely what we need this summer. I think most United fans said that before the window opened, that's for sure. Another area I think which is crucial in my opinion is the experience that she brings. I think a lot of it, we have got a lot of young players, obviously with Clinton coming back into the team, Emma Watson as well. You're looking at the front line, Jace, Turlin, these types of players that are still young. So do you think that's an added bonus as well? She's got that experience she's been in the WSL before, as we've just mentioned with Arsenal, but that also that top level experience as well with Wolfsburg.
Absolutely, big time. She's a player that, like you mentioned, has been in the WSL, but I think particularly when United lose big voices like Mary Earps and their captain Katie Zellum, you can't replace either of those voices, but to be able to compensate for such huge losses, you need to bring in wealth and leadership, wealth of experience and leadership. Both of those things Janssen brings in. She's a Euros winner. She's a World Cup finalist. She has been to the Champions League finals. She's been on those big stages. She's been on those big moments. And she's also had a very long career in terms of playing at the top stage. Like Arsenal and Wolfsburg are not teams that battle in the middle of the table. It's teams that go after the titles and they're always in a title race, and they're always after silverware. And she has been a player that's consistently started every single season for those teams. She's a player who is well equipped with experience. Over 100 caps for the Dutch national team. Still starts pretty much every single game for the Dutch national team, unless there's some injuries going around and things are rotated. But she is a player who has consistently played at the top level and is a leader in her qualities. She has worn the armband sometimes for the Dutch team and for Wolfsburg, if players are substituting, whenever. She is a leader and she brings in so much experience. And so what United are getting when they lose a voice like Katie Zellum and a big kind of commander in the back of Mary Earps, they're bringing in a player who has had to be a commander in these big moments of finals, of knockout games. And that's really what they need if they want to continue winning silverware like the FA Cup. They want to go after it again. So absolutely, her wealth of experience and pressure moments that she's been in and done super well, that cannot be easily replaced by any other player.
No, absolutely. Obviously, when you're speaking about the players lost as well, Earps and Zellum in particular, big voices in the dressing room, and I think that's going to be hard to replace. And bringing in someone who's been there and done it, the experience that she has, you just mentioned, I think is crucial on this one. Another question I just wanted to quickly ask you in terms of, I guess I used to be a bit surprised at this sign. I think in recent weeks we've seen a lot of bad press around United, a lot of it obviously with true and rightfully reported on. Are you surprised that potentially this has happened? Because, when you're linked to City and so on, potentially a stronger position than the United are in at the moment, that she's decided to come to the other side of Manchester.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think in addition to that, she's losing the opportunity to play Champions League. That's another thing that I was also a little bit surprised, because, you know, she's 29. I don't think she's old, but she's not necessarily young where there's another long contract coming after it. Like, you're kind of at the end of your career. You still want to get your Champions League reps in. And so it was surprising to see that she wanted to put herself in an environment that has been reportedly not very great. There's been unrest with the head coach. There's been unrest with the environment that she'll be training on. So yeah, I'd be lying if I said this didn't shock me in terms of, again, she's missing out on Champions League. She's missing on, you know, possibly silverware, depending on how United season's going to go and the signings that they're going to bring in. And it was Manchester City who was in the race for you. They've qualified for Champions League. They still have to go through the qualifiers, but they've qualified for Champions League. They were into the title race until the last day. And, you know, it's a squad that comes in. It's a brilliant squad that City is building, and they have. And she also, you know, familiar faces with the City squad of the likes of Kasperai, who she has played alongside in a lot of the Dutch games. Jill Roord, she's seen her at Wolfsburg. So it was a little bit kind of like a bit of a shock, I think, like you mentioned, with City being in the race. You'd have to think she's getting paid pretty well. I hope that is the case, that she's making great money for this. But I think the promises that United have put on the table for her, you'd hope they fulfill it in terms of they are going to go after silverware. This whole training around portables is not going to be tolerated, and it shouldn't be tolerated. And hopefully they're in the race to chase Champions League, but I wouldn't say this is an up kind of transfer move for her. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but when you look at a team from Wolfsburg and then you had City or United, you'd pick United. That's not necessarily like you're going up a notch, again, in terms of silverware and what you'll be playing. So yeah, I really did think it was going to be City, specifically with the fact that she has played with familiar faces.
No, for sure. I think it's fair to say. I think the United pull is still there. I think just the name of Manchester United is a big pull in men's and women's football on that one. My kind of final two questions to you then. I guess the one I wanted to ask before I get you to kind of rate the signing out of 10, but who do you think she might link up well with in terms of when you're looking at the United squad? Who you think there's going to be a kind of, you know, we see partnerships all over the pitch. Mm-hmm. Who you think that might be in this current United squad?
It's a really good question. I feel like purely based off the height, I think her and Millie Turner are going to have some fun when it comes to set pieces. I think, you know, she's what, about like 5'8", 5'9". I don't know if, do you use that measurements in the UK? 5 foot something. Yeah. Okay, cool. You know, she's 5'1.5", I think 5'9", so she's quite tall. I think Millie Turner too is usually a bit of a threat. I think if she continues working on her aerial threats, I think these two will have a lot of fun working and practice and when it comes to set pieces. But I also see them, you know, I don't know how they'll set up and if they are working alongside each other, of, let's say, Janssen in the defensive midfield position and behind her is Turner. I think these two, because they like to progress and they like to have these kind of progressive passes, I think them two will start to build a chemistry. So aerially, I feel like they'll be spending a lot of time together in practice, in these huddles, in these set piece, you know, deliveries. And I think if they work alongside each other because of how they progressive they like to be, I feel like these two can build something special if, again, set up in the right way.
No, absolutely. Very keen to see how that partnership potentially plays out. My final one to you then, if you could rate this signing out of 10, you can do it from a player point of view and from the club's point of view if you want. What score would you be giving it?
I think it's going to be two different scores, right? I think United are getting a very great player. She's very two-footed. She's versatile. She's experienced. She's got those leadership qualities. She's a World Cup finalist. She's a Euros winner. That's a very long resume that they're winning and they're bringing in. And so for United, that pull, fantastic. I think you'd have to give it at least a 9 out of 10. And that point is docked purely because I'm just not too sure where they put her. As of right now, like, I think we'll have to kind of see what the rest of the window brings. but for United, this is massive business. Fantastic. Also, yeah, 9 out of 10 probably from a United perspective. From a player perspective, I think, and I alluded to this earlier, is that she's losing Champions League football. This is a team who has not had the greatest rep in the media, and you guys have covered that very well with Skinner. You've also talked about the possible discomfort that some of the players had with the extension. She's not coming into an environment that has no unrest. There is no unrest, and that's really all that's known to the media. And again, you guys have on the many shows you've talked about a lot of the locker room conversations, and so when I'm looking at from a player perspective, you'd hope the locker room is a little bit better handled when she is brought in. She's not playing Champions League. You know, they're in a portables, not portables. Where is she going to be training? Like, I think there's going to be a lot of a lot of questions to be answered. Maybe like a 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10 from a player perspective. But I do hope she's getting paid very well. So I don't know if that's too harsh. What would you say? I don't mean to put you under pressure, but how would you rate this from, your perspective?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's a solid 7 or 8, in terms of from United point of view. I think, as you mentioned, it's a great pickup. The fact that, if you want to believe the reports of City, the fact that we've nicked a player off City, I think is a good one to have as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a player that we need. And again, when you look at the other players that we're linked to this summer, like if we can, this could be, I said this before, one of our best ever incoming windows that we've ever had, which is crazy considering the position we're in and the reports that are going around at the moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very intriguing one, I find, and not one that I expected. That's for sure. Yeah. Right, we will wrap it up there. As you know, these player profiles are pretty short when we do these little bite-sized videos for you guys. So a little bit easier on that one. Do you want to shout anything out while you're here? I mean, your YouTube channel name is right above you now. I don't need to.
It is.
Tell you what it is. It's right there.
I can do a little light show even. Hold on. We can do a little.
This is a little exclusive for us. Oh, hang on. I should have put a warning at the start of this. Like,
you can cut that out. So the warning, you don't have to add extra bits on it. Yeah, no, just like Connor mentioned, she scores bangers on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on Twitter, or X is now we call it. She scores banger, no S in there. And yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be around the Olympics. So a lot of Olympics content loading there. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Connor. Also, Connor has made some appearances on my channel, so always great to have him on. So when you join me, you'll see his face pretty often on the channel too.
No, absolutely. Make sure you go and follow everything that Miriam is doing over on her account. And so we don't know when this is going to go out. Obviously, we're recording this at a certain date. We'll release this when the confirmation is out. But as she mentioned, some of the Olympic content for me, as I said to you privately, Miriam, the best World Cup content out there last summer. So if that's anything to go by, the Olympic content is going to be right up there as well. So make sure you're following everything that she's doing over on there. Make sure you're liking this video, subscribing, all of that good stuff. We shall see you guys in the next video.